The Toronto Raptors shocked many when they selected Collin Murray-Boyles with the 9th overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. It was mostly surprising because of who they passed on in order to take him. So in this video, we're going to investigate the real reason behind this selection. Was it a good pick by the Raptors? Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome back to Amateur Sports. This is the YouTube channel that is completely dedicated to giving you Toronto Raptors content, and today we're investigating the decision behind selecting Collin Murray-Boyles with the 9th overall pick in the NBA entry draft, because for many he wasn't really this high on their radar, and it seemed like the Raptors had some really good options to take instead of him. So what was it about Collin Murray-Boyles that had the Raptors passing on the likes of Khaman Malauch and Noah Essengue? Well, we're going to uncover that over the course of the video today. And at the end of the video, we're going to decide if this was a good pick by the Raptors, so stay tuned until the end. But yeah, as the draft was unfolding, first 4 picks kind of went as expected. A bit of a curveball thrown at pick number 5 when Ace Bailey got selected by the Utah Jazz. This opened up Jeremiah Fears to fall to 7, so the Pelicans passed on Derek Queen. Anyways, lots of things changed, but ultimately the script was written and fell into place for the Raptors to potentially land Khaman Malauch, the center out of Duke, or Noah Essengue, the forward out of Germany, playing for Ratio Farm Ulm. And in the lead up to the draft, Noah Essengue was emerging as the favorite to land with the Raptors at 9th overall. But as some situations started to change, all of a sudden, it looked like Khaman Malauch was going to be available at 9 for the Raptors, and he became the favorite for the Raptors to select. And like I said, the script unfolded in favor of the Raptors. He had the opportunity to select the top 2 players from my wish list with the 9th overall pick. And for many Raptors fans, Collin Malauch has long been their first choice, the guy they want the Raptors to take. The fear was he just wasn't going to be available. Well, he was available, and yet still, the Raptors decided to pass. And they passed on these 2 players and passed on a lot of players to go with Collin Murray-Boyles out of South Carolina, a player that wasn't even on my wish list, as you can see here. So why did they make this decision? Well, to uncover the answer to that, let's first learn about exactly who this player is. So, second-year college player, had opportunity to really develop in the second season he played and get himself into this lottery consideration. Now, the Raptors, like I said, it was a bit of a surprise to see them take him at number 9, but he had been mocked in some spots to go to the Raptors at number 9. He'd been mocked to go 10th in the draft. He'd been mocked very consistently to be a lottery-picked player. So it wasn't like a very large reach necessarily for the Raptors, if a reach at all for the second-year player, like I said. 6'8", he measured at 6'6" in shoes, but like he'll be measuring at 6'8" when it comes to the NBA, and he's actually wearing shoes. 7'1" wingspan to go with it. Very nice to see. He's just turned 20 years old and can play as he can really play a multitude of positions. He's been listed as a power forward / center. Could also maybe play a little bit as a 3, but I think that the best way to describe it is a power forward / center. He kind of fits into somebody who wants to play as a big, despite the fact that he is 6'8", which we'll get into a little bit more later on. But statistically, it was a very impressive second season in college ball for Collin Murray-Boyles. Average 16.8 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, that along with 2.4 assists, 1.3 blocks, as you see here. So doing a lot on both ends of the floor, mostly known for his defensive capabilities, but I mean, some really good offensive numbers here and some really efficient displays on 2-pointers, 62% on 2s. Now, a lot of those attempts are coming right at the rim where he's not shooting a tremendous percentage. So the statistics of efficiency are skewed a little bit. That being said, true shooting percentage of 63%, largely because of taking a lot of 2s right at the rim and gets to the line a ton. Really does a great job of drawing free throws, similar to the way we described Noah Essengue in the video that we did about him. Collin Murray-Boyles gets to the line a ton, and that really does help with the true shooting. That really does help to be analytically sound on offense. Now, the one I've skipped over here is the three-point percentage. He shot 26.5% on 3s this season, took about 1 3-point attempt per game. That is the area of concern for his offense, absolutely. That's one of the biggest concerns with his game. It's the lack of floor spacing. And it's a curious decision for the Raptors to go with somebody here who does lack the floor spacing, considering that is a big area of need and a big area of improvement needed for this Raptors team. But there had to have been stuff the Raptors liked in order to take Collin Murray-Boyles in this position, because they passed on some really good players to take him here. Well, there are a lot of strengths. So many strengths that my typical graphic here, I had to really take some off. Like, I really had to think about the ones I didn't want to include. There was so much I could have written about him as far as the strengths are concerned. Top of the list is like the intangibles, the intensity, the toughness, the competitive motor. Like, this is the type of player the Raptors have looked to prioritize as of late. I mean, you look at Jamal Shed last year, the 45th overall pick. Just the grit that this player brings to the team, the dynamic that he can bring to the team. It's something that the Raptors are going to relish working with, and I think it'll be great for his teammates as well. Really brings such a tremendous amount of hustle to the floor, but it's backed up by a lot of talent, particularly on the defensive end. So versatile defensively. In the post-draft interview Bobby Webster, Raptors GM, did, he talked a lot about the versatility that he brings defensively, and it was a definite need going into the draft for the Raptors to get some rim protection. And a lot of people, after the selection was made, were complaining, like, we need to back up center, we need backup rim protection. Well, there is so much versatility here for Collin Murray-Boyles that I think that they're looking at this like potentially somebody who can kind of fill that role. Now, Bobby Webster kind of downplayed the fit stuff, basically cited that Collin Murray-Boyles they felt was the best player available, therefore they took him there. But to me, it seems like this slightly can address some of the backup center situations. Like, he can play as a small ball five and, maybe won't be doing it all the time. But I think the versatility defensively provides the Raptors interesting opportunities to use him sometimes as that small ball five, sometimes as that power forward defensively, that help defense power forward. And you can have lineups in which Collin Murray-Boyles is featuring next to Jakob Poeltl, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to do with a traditional center. Now, again, my top choice was Malauch. I was willing to forgive that, but basically, Malauch could only exist on the floor when Jakob Poeltl wasn't on it. There isn't that constraint for Collin Murray-Boyles. Defensively as well, like, the defensive instincts are there, just kind of knows how to occupy the right areas. And in terms of rim protection, like, yes, he can block shots, as we saw, 1.3 blocks per game, pretty good for a player like him. But also, like, he can kind of wall up in front of the rim. It can kind of deny your entry to the rim in a lot of situations. I think the Raptors will look at that and think, well, they clearly did look at that and think that was a good skill to have. A lot of great skills defensively, has tremendous feel for the game on both ends of the floor. Like, it's not just the offensive side of things, which you would normally associate with feel for the game, and you have that, but defensively, again, just knows how to make the right plays on such a consistent basis. Decent at getting to his spots, good in these face-up situations on offense. Kind of, it's a bit of a wrecking ball on offense in creating his shot. Uses his size, uses his body really well. He's incredibly strong for his size, so he can kind of match up with opposition bigs a little bit. Can finish through contact at a pretty consistent degree. Just manufactures the scoring. Knows how to get his buckets on the inside. Consistently makes the right decisions. Knows when it's time to be the player that steps up as the lead guy. But also talked about a lot in his interviews, in the pre-draft process, the post-draft interviews as well. Talking about his ability to, he can be that lead guy, but he can also be a role player. He can slot into where he needs to be. And for the Raptors, that's great to hear, because there are a lot of great players on this team already. A lot of guys who need the ball a lot, like Scotty Barnes, like Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, etc. Collin Murray-Boyles knows where he needs to fit in, knows where he needs to slot in to make himself effective for those guys. Like I said as well, gets to the line a ton. Free throw attempt rate is great. Helps with his true shooting percentage. Helps with his numbers. Helps with the analytics. It's just good, a guy who knows how to get to the line. But there are weaknesses in this game. And there are weaknesses that were strong enough for me to not really consider him a threat to end up getting selected 9th overall. Like I said, he was not on my list, not on my wish list. There are 7 players I listed here. He was not one of them. And I thought the biggest thing that was going to scare off the Raptors was the floor spacing and a little bit of the size. Now, there are a lot of ways in which he can overcome his size because he does have a long wingspan, does have a pretty good standing reach as well for somebody who is kind of, the size of a forward. That allows him to match up decently as a small ball 5. But like for the position, like if you're going to be playing him in this role down low, yeah, he's undersized for the position. He makes up for it, but he's undersized for the position. That's absolutely a weakness. And it's also a little bit of a weakness that he doesn't have the highest vertical. Like, he's still, like, explosive. Like, he gets off the ground quick. He just doesn't get super high when he does get off the ground quickly. This leads to a little bit of difficulty scoring against size. Like, he's not the biggest, and he doesn't have the strongest vertical. A lot of what he does to be successful on offense, at least in the college game, was going through contact, scoring through bigs. Well, against bigger, stronger, better opponents in the NBA, is he going to be able to manufacture those opportunities as easily at the rim? I'm not so sure. He already wasn't extraordinarily efficient in his shots right at the rim at the college level, which can lead to a little bit of a hindrance on offense. The floor spacing is the big concern. Projections are like low 30s for three-point shooting, but for a guy who shoots above 70% from the line, it kind of feels like there is a shooting stroke there. It's taken a while for that three-point shot to come along, and it is concerning. But in listening to Bobby Webster after the selection was made in his press conference, he did talk about the Raptors drafting. A lot of the times they draft for the versatility, the switchability, and the defensive side of the ball. There is some offensive talent there, but they trust themselves to work with these players to get that three-point shot to the next level. A big success story there is Pascal Siakam, who really developed his three-point shot with the Raptors, which took his game to the next level. That's something that's probably going to just have to happen for Collin Murray-Boyles to be successful with the Raptors and be successful in the NBA. The Raptors do believe he is capable of doing that. And I mean very successful. I think this player can be successful and can contribute without having that shot. That is a huge swing factor to how far he can go in his NBA career. His handling and playmaking aren't the sharpest. Decent as a passer, decent with his feel for the game, like I said. Pretty good passer. It's just, he's not going to be the lead sort of ball handler. He's not going to really be initiating the offense. That's not his style, and that's completely okay. Just thought I would note it here for the weaknesses. Overall, the type of player that you'd want to compare him to, Draymond Green is getting thrown around for his defensive versatility. I like that. People are worried about his lack of size for playing as a small ball 5. He can play above it. He's done it consistently, and you've seen the likes of Draymond Green being able to do that previously. So you have to think about that from a defensive standpoint. On the offensive end, I think there are a lot of parallels that exist with Julius Randle, actually. And Julius Randle really found his three-point shooting stroke when he came into the league. But it wasn't there right out the gate. It took time for that to develop. But just having that face-up game in the short posts, in the mid-range areas, and being able to get to the rim, using your size to get to the rim, kind of being a wrecking ball in those areas, it does remind me quite a bit of Julius Randle. So I think there's a good comparison there. But a little bit on defense as well. I think what somebody brought up in the chat I did for the live stream we did for the first round of the draft, somebody mentioned a supercharged version of Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. And that kind of did resonate with me. Somebody who's willing to hustle, who can play multiple positions, who can play above their size, who can play a bit of small ball 5. Like, Raptors fans loved what Rondae Hollis-Jefferson embodied. Now we have a supercharged, much more talented version of that with the team. And I think as well, some of the traits that Jonathan Mobo brought to the team defensively for the Raptors, like this is a better version of Jonathan Mobo, it seems the Raptors have drafted here with the 9th overall pick. So, was this a good selection by the Raptors? We finally come to that point of the video. Well, you saw my wish list. He wasn't on it. Malauch, Noah Essengue, those guys were available. Those were the top 2 on my list. They were both available at 9. The Raptors passed. Personally, this is not the selection I would have made in this spot. That being said, I see the vision and can fully see why the Raptors went in this direction. They see an extraordinarily versatile defender who has these fantastic intangibles, is such a hard worker, who is willing to work on his game. Like, there's a lot of great talent there. The missing piece to Murray-Boyles' game for the NBA is the spacing, And the Raptors have bet successfully in the past on their players that they draft to find that three-point shooting stroke with their development team. They've identified a lot of traits that they like defensively, and the biggest things they like is that defensive versatility. And I see the vision there. Yes, the Raptors needed extra rim protection. Yes, the Raptors needed a backup center. They may feel like Murray-Boyles provides enough that they can forego having to go and address that. Maybe in free agency, they still will address that. They'll find a big. Don't think they will because they don't have any cap space. They're not an attractive free agent destination. But they probably feel like they have the versatility here to have a menacing defense with Collin Murray-Boyles involved. I see this working defensively next to a lot of players in the team, like the bench unit's going to have Ochai Agbaji, Jamal Shed, and this guy. That's going to lead to some fantastic defensive numbers. The issue is the offensive side of the ball. On offense, the fit's a bit clunky. Like, I see the talent there, but the fit's clunky. Like, this is a Raptors team that's already extremely lacking in floor spacing, and off the bench, it's kind of extremely lacking in self-creation. This isn't addressing that. This isn't helping that. At 9th overall, we always say you draft talent over fit. It just feels like there were some players that may have fit a little bit better with the Raptors and maybe had a little bit more talent. So for me, like I said, this isn't the selection that I would have made in this spot at 9th overall. However, I understand why the Raptors did it. I see the talent. I can see the fit working. I'm bought in at this point. I'm really excited to see what developmental strides Murray-Boyles can take with this Raptors team, with this Raptors development team, and with this unit going into the season. I think with the defense there is potential to impact the game and impact the Raptors rotation out the gates. We will see. There are a lot of quality players on this Raptors team that might make it difficult to break through out the gates immediately, but I see the vision. I see the potential. Not the selection I would have made, holding my hands up to that. However, I'm bought in. I have faith in this Raptors front office, like Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, scouting team led by Dan Tolzman. I have full belief in them, of course, to make the right decision in the draft because time and time again, they've got it right. Sure, there's been some misses, but time and time again, this scouting team, this front office has got it right on draft night. So I'm not going to come out here and say that they didn't get this one right. I like the pick. I like the player. Wasn't my first choice. Wasn't my favorite pick, but I like it. I'm excited to see where it goes. Last thing I'll note here, because this was just circulating around, and this got me so frustrated. The clickbait, people complain that I clickbait. I don't think I do, but in comparison to what I'm seeing about Collin Murray-Boyles, oh my God, the clickbait going around with his reaction to getting drafted. He dropped an F-bomb and was shaking his head, but he was smiling. He was shaking his head in disbelief by the selection. He probably didn't think he was going to go that high. The Raptors didn't tell him before the pick that they were going to take him. He was probably shocked that he got selected and was basking in realizing his NBA dream, emotional from all the work that has gone in to put him in that position. I'm sure all of us have had moments where we've dropped an F-bomb and shook our head in disbelief and gratitude for all the work that has gone in and for being selected there. So the notion that he was upset that he got selected by the Raptors is just ridiculous. It's people looking for something to complain about. It's people who just want to be upset about something. It's people that are looking for something that isn't there, and it's incredibly frustrating. If you saw his interviews before the draft, he spoke very highly of the Raptors, and according to Bob Webster, behind the scenes, he talked about how he thought this was a great spot for him to go. When he got selected, he was literally smiling when it happened. He was excited on stage, and in his interviews after the selection, he was talking about how excited he was to be a Raptor. So any notion that Murray-Boyles does not want to be a Raptor, we are putting that to bed. End of discussion. All in all, again, to finish off, I like the pick. I understand why people thought that Malauch was the guy, Essengue was the guy, Queen was the guy, whoever. I understand people's perspective on that, but put your faith in the front office to get this right again. And at the end of the day, whatever your thoughts are on that, he is a Raptor. He was selected. He needs our support. He needs our backing. Let's hope we get the absolute best out of Collin Murray-Boyles, because if we do, he is going to be a sensational player for the Toronto Raptors.